Hello. Today I'm going to speak about vocabulary size and how to measure it. There are two kinds of vocabulary. There is a passive vocabulary and there is a smaller active vocabulary. The passive vocabulary is the words you can understand when you see them used in something written or something spoken. The active vocabulary is the vocabulary you can use even in a given situation where you can recall a word and use it. And if you take a language which you know very well, your native language for instance, then the percentage of words which are active within the passive word stock will be large. For instance, in Danish I can probably use most of the words I know. If you don't know a language well, chances are that you can use a small percentage of the words you can recognize. For instance, Russian, I know enough to read with some problems a text in Russian. I would not be able to write it, maybe, at least not without a dictionary. I would not be able to recall the words I needed for that task. That means my active vocabulary is almost always a reflection of how well you know a language. We are not going to discuss how to measure the active vocabulary because there are no really quantitative methods for that. I'm only going to speak about how to measure the passive vocabulary, because there we have a method. You just check your vocabulary with a dictionary. There are some home pages which offer the same service, but I prefer using my dictionaries. I've made those calculations in at least 3 periods. When I restarted my language studies in 2006, I had to relearn a lot of language, and I used my vocabulary size as one of the measures of, well, did I progress or not. I also discovered by using those dictionaries that just looking in them would teach me words, and from that I have derived my word list methods and things like that, but we're not going to discuss that here. In 2009 I was somewhat more sophisticated, and I decided to make a total inventory of all my words. So I took a couple of dictionaries for each of my languages, and then I did more or less the same thing as in 2006. I took in each dictionary a number of pages, and I divided everything into words and not words. There is a notion called headword. The thing that is written with bold at the start of an article in a dictionary is a headword. The problem is that some dictionaries put something that is clearly should have been headwords inside the articles, but then I could use a derived measure. I could just say that everything that was printed in bold should be counted as a word, and all of the rest didn't interest me at that point. It was not really good. I wanted to compare across languages. But if you take a language like English, then often a notion is expressed through 2 words put closely together, whereas in a language like German, there would be 1 word consisting of 2 words concatenated, and that become 1 word then. What is a word? There have been people who have written thick books about that, and I could not decide. It's decided then. I made some rules for it, and I made some calculations, and you can see those on the screen. But now, here in 2012, it happened that I went to Sicily, and you know the luggage rules tell you to limit your luggage, at least if you fly with Ryanair. So I only brought this tiny dictionary Inglese, with me to Sicily, D'Agostini. It is both ways. There are 40,000 words, it says, but in 2 vocabulary, and half of that would be 20,000, and that includes things that are not headwords, or at least words. And I now have decided to count both the words, whatever that is, and the rest, which I call expressions for want of a better term. then I at least don't throw out something. And in 2006 I divided those in two groups: known things, unknown things. Known things, unknown things, but in between we've got a group of what I now call the halfway known or partly known words. Partly known word can be a word which you are sure you have seen it, but you never bothered to find out really what it meant. You have a vague feeling about the meaning, but that's not enough. So that's a half-known word. In 2006 they might have ended up in a group of known. Now my numbers have fallen because I've put some of those in the partly known group. At the other end of that partly known group we have the words which I definitely never have seen, but I can guess what they mean because I've seen something like them in another language, or I've seen some related words in the same language. That is guessable words, vaguely known words and guessable words, those from the middle group. So now I have three levels: known words, partly known words, and unknown words, and three levels of expressions: partly known expressions, and unknown expressions. And I count those on those pages I study. I use the three colors: blue for things that are known, green for things that are partly known, red for things that are not known. When I'm through those pages I want to study, I have some numbers and I make a sum for each of those 6 categories. And then I can start to make my calculations. With my little dictionary here, I found that the number of known words would be around 9,000. When I came home, I estimate, using this dictionary from Gyldendal Denmark, Italiensk Dansk, with some 44,000 headwords plus maybe 28,000 expressions. Well, I knew more words because there were more words in the book. So my estimate went up from those 9,000 to 26,000. Of course, the larger a dictionary, the larger number will be. There will be some limit upwards where it won't grow as fast because the rest of the words are too strange and irrelevant. The larger a dictionary, the larger number will be, but there's a solution. You can calculate percentages. These two very different sized books gave almost the same percentages. So I can with some confidence say that I don't know exactly how many words I know, but I'll trust the big one more. But I can also say that even my calculation using this small book was fairly accurate, but it just gave me the percentage of known words in Italian. The percentage would fall if I used an enormous dictionary, because there are words I don't ever want to know and certainly don't know yet. But up to a size above 50,000, it seems that the percentage is almost the same. Why? Because in the big dictionary there are a lot of international words, scientific words, which I know fairly well. And that compensates for the fact that there are also a lot of strange words, I would say unnecessary words sometimes. Those effects cancel themselves out, and I am back with maybe 70% of words in Italian. What then? What conclusion can I draw from that? That Italian is a major language in the sense that from now on it's not really a question of getting more words. Of course I know more words in Danish and English, but that's not the important thing. The important thing from now on is to use those words and make them active. And my progress from now on, it will of course be to be better at speaking the language and using the words I already know. On the other hand, if I take another language where I know fairly few words and where my percentages are lower, it still is worth doing word lists and things like that to learn more passive words. If I have to learn passive words in Italian, then I have to read specialized literature, not dictionaries. If I have to do the same thing in, for instance, Indonesian or something like that, then it is still worth doing word lists, because I lack a lot of fairly common words. I guess that few of you will take the step to really make calculations like this, but if you do, look for the percentages. That's my message. Goodbye.